Good morning, everyone. A quick announcement. The webinar will start in 5 minutes. Thank you. A wonderful morning to everyone who has joined today. From Manage Engine family, we would like to extend our warm welcome and sincere thanks to all our customers, partners, and users who are interested in our solutions. Endpoint management and security is one of the main focus areas of Manage Engine, and in today's session, we will be covering patch management. Before I proceed further with today's training, I would like to confirm if you can hear my voice and view the presentation. Please do confirm by commenting on the chat window. Let us wait for a couple of confirmations, then I will proceed further. All right, thank you for your valuable feedback. Now let me introduce myself. My name is Uttam and I'm a product specialist with Manage Engine for over 6 years. I take care of the endpoint management products, including Endpoint Central. I'm a seasoned technical support engineer assisting customers in their implementation, consultation, and troubleshooting in case of any challenges. In today's webinar, we will be focusing on endpoint management solutions, which has different product portfolios both under management and security. We have tools like Vulnerability Manager Plus, Patch Manager Plus, Browser Security Plus, Device Control Plus, OS Deployer, and Mobile Device Manager. These products take care of their own native requirement as a standalone tool. But Endpoint Central is a complete unified endpoint management tool that has all these features under a single roof. I would say Endpoint Central is a suite of all these products supported under one single web console. Apart from this, if you have a major requirement of managing third-party application patches, I would recommend Patch Connect Plus. Patch Connect Plus is a simple component that can integrate with SSEM and Intune to deploy third-party updates. As you can see, we offer a wide variety of products to handle all of your endpoint management and security concerns. To know more about our products availability, you shall visit our website mentioned on the slide. Once again, I welcome you all to the Endpoint Central training program. In today's session, we will be specifically discussing on how to handle patch management in the digital workspace. Now let us take a look on the overview of our training. We are on week 1 of series 6, which is patch management. This is one of the modules of our endpoint management and security suite. All these training sessions will be recorded and made available in the below mentioned website. Also, all the registered participants will receive an email with a recorded training video. You can also attend our free training series and claim your certificate on completing the series of courses. Patch management for distributed workforce. Before we start the training, I would like to take you through the agenda for the day. We will start with an overview of what patch management and its features are, followed by its architecture to understand how Endpoint Central works. We will then discuss about the effective ways in which you shall manage your endpoints that are distributed in various geographical locations. And followed by the strategic planning in managing these endpoints and network access control. We will conclude the session with the most frequently asked questions with their answers. And during the last webinar, most of our customers have already raised valuable questionnaire. We have collated them all and I will be explaining them to you in detail. So during the training, if you come across any questions, feel free to use the chat option to chat with our expert panel team. We will also collect all the questions raised during the session and they will be published for the larger audience. For the presentation, I will be using Endpoint Central build version 10.1.2137.10 and this application supports all the browsers. Across the globe, we have started embracing the new normal. And for an IT administrator, the new normal now means a distributed workforce. Managing and securing the devices across the distributed workforce can come up with quite a lot of challenges. Now let's consider a live example to understand how the distributed workforce will perform and how our solution will make your job easy to patch them. And we will be correlating these with examples, as we will be suggesting multiple methods to manage and patch the endpoints remotely. John is one of our customers who is managing a chain of hotels in multiple locations and managing 10,000 computers in his network, which is spread across the globe. As we can see from the picture, each remote office comes with its own requirement in terms of number of endpoints managed, bandwidth, and the mode of connectivity. So the IT team now has to figure out the ways to test newly released patches, deploy them periodically, and also to monitor all the endpoints. Now let's take a look at how John can handle both the situations with the features available in the Endpoint Central. There are two types of users John will have to cater to. First, users who connect to Endpoint Central via VPN, and then the users who are connecting over the internet. Apart from the roaming users, John should also revise a strategy to get the back to office machines up and running. Now that the offices are opening up in some parts of the world, IT admins need to check the compliance status of the machines that are getting back to the office. We will be discussing more about this in the upcoming slides. Our organization has completely adopted remote and distributed work culture, and this can be challenging for IT admins who now have to consider various factors before initiating a patch task for the distributed workforce. And some of these factors are bandwidth constraint, keeping the end users informed about the patch task, time constraint while applying these patches, reboot schedule, and troubleshooting. We'll be looking on how we can include all these factors in managing and securing the distributed workforce. But before that, let us get a brief understanding on what Endpoint Central is. Endpoint Central is a unified endpoint management solution that ensures all your endpoints are secure and enable the users to use them effectively for business. A popular research analyst called Forrester defines UVM as follows: products that provide a centralized policy engine for managing and securing employee laptops and mobile devices from a single console. In unified endpoint management, you can manage your endpoints in a traditional IT management fashion. This includes patch management, application management, configuration deployment, OS deployment, tools for troubleshooting, and to automate the day-to-day routine management activities. Similarly, endpoints can also be managed with modern management. All modern operating systems now support modern management. It supports functionalities like geo-tracking, geo-fencing, and distribution of store applications, profile distribution to enforce restrictions, operating system reset and recovery. Hence, with Endpoint Central UVM edition, you get a complete integration of client management capabilities combined with mobile device management and modern management for Windows and Mac. So you can handle all of your endpoints right from device provisioning towards vulnerability assessments, ensuring the security, and also support analytical data and comprehensive reporting. Customers and users who have used Endpoint Central have also recognized our solution as a wholesome UVM product, and it has been awarded with accolades under various forums. We have been recognized by Gartner in 2022 under the Unified Endpoint Management Tools category. So with Unified Endpoint Management solution, you will be able to manage your desktops, laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, servers, point of sale devices, and browsers all from a single console. And we currently support 3 operating systems: Windows, Mac, and Linux. And here is the complete list of operating systems supported by Endpoint Central. The application server runs on Windows platform, but you can manage the endpoints with Mac, Windows, and Linux operating systems. In case if you have any questions, you can reach out to the support by referring to the email address mentioned below. And also we have started supporting the latest Mac OS Ventura in our solution. As Desktop Central users are aware, patch management comes as a functionality in our solution. If you require patch management as a separate product, then we have a standalone tool called Patch Manager Plus available in both on-premise and cloud solution. Now we are actually stepping into the core overview of the patch management. And this supports 1000 plus applications that includes Windows, Mac, and Linux. And we also support 500 plus third party applications. Based on the use cases, a lot of customers had questions on what updates are supported by Endpoint Central Patch Management. And here is a brief description. We support security only updates, monthly rollups, cumulative updates, feature pack updates, optional updates, definition updates, and automatic handling of service stack updates. We do support the extended security updates for the end of life operating systems like Windows 7, Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2008 R2, provided if you have extended support license enabled. When it comes to the server patching, we support patching for Windows servers and Linux servers with both the security and non-security updates. As you all know, the latest feature pack, Windows 10 22H2, is supported in our Endpoint Central. So you can upgrade your older Windows 10 machines to the latest Windows 10 22H2. And in case if your requirement is to upgrade your Windows 10 to Windows 11, this is also supported within the patch management offered in the Endpoint Central solution. As we all know, once a feature pack is released, its service or support will be available for 18 to 30 months based on the addition of Windows 10 that you're running. So with Endpoint Central, you will be able to automate all these feature pack deployments. We will be looking at more information about how the feature pack deployment can be automated using our Endpoint Central product as we proceed further. And here is the full approach recommended by Microsoft for patch management. As you all know, second Tuesday of every month is considered to be the Patch Tuesday for Microsoft. During this time, Microsoft releases a lot of security and non-security updates. And most of our customers only consider the security updates and tend to ignore the non-security patches. As you can see in this image, this is how Microsoft test and deploy patches in their test environment. We would always recommend you to give high priority for the critical security updates, but at least by third or fourth week, we recommend you to deploy all the required patches in order to achieve the fully patched recommended state of Microsoft. So this will ensure your environment is kept healthy. Let's also have an overview of the patch management architecture. Whenever a patch is released, it is made available in the vendor sites. Our crawler team dedicatedly probes the internet to draw the vulnerability information from the vendor sites. And once the download is completed, the patches will be tested in our local environment. Upon successful installation and compatibility checks, the updates will be supported in our central patch repository. Now, the Endpoint Central application running in your premises subscribes to our central patch repository to download the vulnerability database periodically. Once the process is completed, the client machines will be scanned in order to identify the required updates. Upon identifying the missing patches, Endpoint Central will directly download the required updates from the vendor sites. And the managed computers, based on from where they are connected, they are now allowed to download the patches either from the Endpoint Central or from the internet directly. However, as an IT admin, you will have control to define the deployment date and time. Now let us take a look at how the endpoints can be managed in the distributed workforce. Patching the roaming users. There are two ways in which the users can be managed. One is through the secure gateway server. The domain users can connect to the secure gateway, thereby you don't have to expose your Endpoint Central server on the internet. So this way, all the communication between the agent and the Endpoint Central server will happen through the secure gateway component. I'm going to take you to the web console of Endpoint Central and show you how this configuration can be done. On your Endpoint Central console, navigate to admin. NAT settings, and this is where you configure the public FQDN. Once it is done, you can navigate to admin and secure gateway server, and you shall install the secure gateway component on a dedicated Windows machine. And this will ensure all the roaming machines will now communicate with the public FQDN that you have configured, and this will ensure that all the posting of every information will be happening to the Endpoint Central server. So this will allow your Endpoint Central server to cater the needs of roaming users through the secure gateway server. Now let's go back to the presentation. Now the second category, work from home users who need a direct download to be implemented. Endpoint Central offers a feature called direct download. This is to conserve bandwidth for the above mentioned VPN users. The agent can now directly download the patches from the internet without any dependency on Endpoint Central server. However, there are a couple of prerequisites before you enable the direct download. First, you need to ensure you're running on the latest build version of Endpoint Central, and you need to apply a simple configuration to allow the VPN connected work from home endpoints to download the required patches directly. Now let me show you how this configuration can be done. On your Endpoint Central console, navigate to Threads and Patches, Deployment, Disable Automatic Updates. Here you can find the configuration called Enable Agent to directly download the patches, and you can create a configuration and choose the group of machines to which you want to enable the direct download. This can be applied to a specific group of computers or the entire domain, and you can push this configuration by deploying immediately. Once the direct download is enabled, the agents will start to download the patches directly from the internet. Back to the presentation. Now let's talk about the scenario back to office. There are a few factors that an administrator should look for when the machines are coming back to the office. Quarantining the non-compliant machines, updating the unpatched applications, deploying the feature packs, and deploying updates based on the user's availability. So now we are going to discuss the scenarios one by one. Previously, we have seen how to manage the endpoints during the work from home scenario. And now we shall create a routine for the back to office machines. The first objective will be enabling network access control for the non-compliant machines and identifying the critical applications to patch them in priority. Post which, we will be creating a system restore point for all the work from home machines so that in case of experiencing any challenges through patch management deployment task, we are safe to restore the backup, and that's basically the primary objective of creating a system restore point. The next objective is to keep the end users informed about the patching schedule so that they can be prepared. And then we will be testing the newly released patches on a pilot group of machines first before deploying them to the bulk computers. And based on the testing results, we will be approving the patches and deploying them further to the highly vulnerable systems and finally generate a report based on the activities. Now let's take a look at them one by one. Here is the workflow of network access control. Network access control is used to tighten the network security by restricting the endpoints that do not satisfy the compliant requirements of an organization. This will enable the system administrator to allow or restrict the access to organization's network for the endpoints that fail to conform the compliance settings defined by the administrator. As we take a look at the workflow, the administrator will create a policy that defines the compliance status. If a system is found to be non-compliant, the network resources of those endpoints will get restricted automatically. And by default, the compliance status of all the systems are checked automatically during every refresh cycle. We will further discuss about the refresh cycle in the upcoming sessions. And the compliance status of the quarantine machines to which you apply the compliance policies will be checked every time whenever there is an IP change. That is, whenever the machines are reconnected to the network, the compliance is automatically validated. Now let me show you how this can be done. We have even published an article defining about the network access control and how to configure this. And this article has a zip file on how to install and run the NAC module. I have already downloaded it, and this is how the quarantine policy generator looks like. Here, you will be able to allocate or search for a specific keyword or software based on services. You can also set the domain or IP address that you wish to allow for the quarantine machines. For example, if a software exists or not, and similarly, you can make a check for service if it exists or not. In case if a machine is found to be non-compliant, you can block the entire network access or block only to a specific intranet range. So we are defining a custom check before the machines enter our network. You'll be creating this policy, and this policy will be deployed to all the client machines as a configuration. Going back to the presentation, and here is a screenshot on how the deployment zip look like. If you see, there is a test based on a software as well as a service if they exist. So if both the software and service exist, we are going to block all the network access for that machine. And this will be created as a policy and we'll be deploying it as a configuration. The next topic is the creating of system restore point, mainly for the back to office machines. As mentioned earlier, in case of any issues during the patch deployment task, you will be safe to use this restore point generated in the Endpoint Central. Now let me show you how to create a system restore point for the back to office machines. Navigating back to the console, under configurations, script repository, templates module, search for restore. And add the script to the repository. I have already added it before. Now you can deploy the script as a computer configuration and define the number of machines. And this can be done to an entire domain or even for a specific only for the back to office machines. And once this is deployed, the system restore point will be generated on the target devices. Next, we will be looking at the critical applications to patch, followed by testing them in the pilot machines, and then we will be deploying them to the production environment. So let's take a look at the web console on how to achieve these scenarios. In order to identify the critical missing patches, you need to navigate to threads and patches, patches. Here you can see the total number of patches that are required to your entire network. You can filter them based on criticality. For example, if you only want to view the highly critical patches currently pending in your environment, go ahead and create a filter based on the severity. And you can also filter the patches based on their type. If you only want to see the security updates on the non-security updates, we have the filters available to add your own criteria and to further work on deploying the patches. Now we are going to test these critical updates on the test lab, and we are going to observe the results, which is available under deployment, test and approve. Here, you will be creating a pilot group of machines on which the first set of updates need to be deployed. Under admin, custom group, you can create a new group by selecting all the test machines. And these are the first set of pilot machines where all the latest patches will be applied whenever they are released from the vendor site. And as an administrator, you can define what type of patches should be tested every month whenever they get released. For example, in your organization, you follow a compliance policy to only test the security and the non-security updates, you can enable them. So you have the freedom to select what type of patches and what severity level, and testing is also supported for the third-party updates, antivirus definition updates, and driver updates too. And further, we have the deployment policy. Deployment policy indicates when exactly the testing should happen every month. So for now, I will be selecting a deployment policy, and I'll be talking about more about this functionality as we move further. And we have the process of automatic approval. So once a patch gets tested on the pilot machines, after a specific number of days, like 7 days or 10 days based on your requirement, all the patches that have successfully installed on the test devices and haven't failed on any one of them will be further approved by the product. So every month, whenever new updates are released, without your manual intervention required, the Endpoint Central tool will download the latest patches and apply them on the test machines. As an administrator, your main role is to validate how the test machines are behaving before and after the patching is completed. So this is how you can validate all the patches on a specific set of devices. In case, while the testing is happening, if you come across any abnormal behavior, find out that a machine is behaving improperly or an application is getting crashed out, you can immediately log into the console and find out which patch is causing issue and further select the update and decline them. So once a patch is declined, they will not be deployed to any of your production devices through any configuration from the product. So that is the benefit of having a test and approve, which is a recommended approach from both the Microsoft as well as Endpoint Central to have all the patches which are appropriate and relevant to your production thoroughly validated on the pilot machines to ensure that your production machines are not affected with any type of bad patch. Now going back to the presentation, let's see what the next scenario is. Feature pack deployment. Endpoint Central do support feature pack deployments where you can directly upgrade your older versions of Windows 10 to the latest Windows 10 20H2. And you can also upgrade your Windows 10 machines to the latest Windows 11 version. And we have made a dedicated article regarding the upgrade process, including all the steps from Windows 10 to Windows 11. We recommend you to contact the support team for the instructions, or you can post your query on the chat for the expert team to assist you right away. Deployment based on users availability. The benefit of enabling this report is to understand the pattern of users active time in a day-to-day planning patching activity. So once you know the system uptime, you will be able to configure the patch deployment activity as per the availability. So navigating to the console on the Endpoint Central and the reports, Power Management Report. Here you will find the system uptime report. With this custom reporting, we have supported the key details like domain name and the remote office details associated with the active user. So based on the system uptime, you can configure the patch deployment activity to ensure that all the machines are getting updated in their available maintenance window time. Back to the presentation. Now we are going to create a new set of policies for the work from home endpoints, mainly to allow the users to skip the deployment and define the user scheduled reboot policies. Now let me show you how to create a deployment policy based on the situation. As mentioned earlier, every configuration that you create in Endpoint Central is associated with a deployment policy. And you can create n number of deployment policies based on your need. On the Endpoint Central console, navigate to Threats and Patches, Deployment, Deployment Policies. Deployment policy is like a template which you can use for n number of configurations that you create in the future. And creating a deployment policy is a simple 4-step process where you have the flexibility to choose the weeks and the days and the starting and the ending time when the patching should happen on the end devices. And you can schedule this patching activity based on a regular monthly format, or you can start your patching cycle once Microsoft releases the bulk updates, which happens on every second Tuesday of the month. And in order to save the time, you can enable the agent to download all the patches prior to the deployment window. So once the deployment window begins, the agent will start to execute the updates one by one in a quick time. And we can also configure the pre-deployment activities where you can wake up the machines if they're on the LAN, and you can pre-reboot the systems before the patching is done. And you can also execute a custom script before the deployment activity. So if you want to stop a service or take a snapshot of the VM or create a restore point, you can engineer your own script and have it uploaded into the product, and make sure the script gets executed first, followed by the patch installation. You can also notify the end users with your own custom message about the deployment activity, and also allow them to skip the deployment if they are busy with some important task. And post the deployment, you can schedule a reboot where you can forcefully reboot the machines within the same deployment window time. So in the same window, after all the patches are installed successfully, machines will be forcefully rebooted if it requires one. In case if you want to reboot the machines in a separate window, for example, you patch the machines from Monday to Friday, but you want the reboot to happen only on Sundays, you can have a dedicated time window specified for the reboot. So the patch deployment and the reboot activities will be performed in their independent time windows. In case if you want to allow the end user to decide when the reboot should happen, you can choose delay reboot, where you can allow the user to define or skip the reboot for a specific period of time, like 48 hours or 72 hours based on your convenience. Until the end of this time period, user can skip the reboot from happening n number of times. But once the time window is completed, machines will be forcefully restarted. And again, after the reboot, you can run some post deployment script to restart the service back again. So every month, whenever the patches are newly released, the testing and further rolling out to the production environment can be completely controlled by the administrator by creating your own deployment policy to suit your environment. Going back to the presentation. And this is how the screenshot looks like when the end user gets a skip reboot notification. From the drop-down menu, the user can choose when exactly the reboot should happen or for how long they want to skip the reboot from happening. And they will also be alerted with the time when the machine is going to be rebooted. And this is when the end users want to skip the reboot. So you can define an exact time when this has to be done. And also the policies for servers. As we discussed earlier, you can also set up a time frame when the deployment should go through. You can wake up and deploy the patches if the machine is on the LAN. And here is a screenshot of force reboot pop-up. This appears on the screen. We will be providing a default timeout of 5 minutes before the force reboot so that user can save all the work that is open. In case if you want to extend the timeout, this is also possible through the deployment policy. Now, we have seen so far how the latest patches can be tested automatically on the pilot machines and how they can be approved after thorough validation. Now, the next step is how to deploy the patches onto the production machines in an automatic way. So every month when new patches are released, it is going to be a manual work for the administrator to create a configuration each and every time. To avoid that, we have the automate patch deployment functionality available, where once you create a configuration, this will take care of the monthly updates for a lifetime. So your intervention and your time spent on the product is very negligible. So this automated task creation is a simple 4-step process. Step 1 includes selecting what type of updates should be automatically rolled out. Remember, we have already tested all the patches required, and this automated task is only going to further deploy the approved updates. And you can select the third-party patches, antivirus definition updates, and driver updates to be deployed. And you can configure the deployment policy. So deployment policy plays a very crucial role to control when the deployment should happen every month, and also activities like reboot or shutdown activity. So create a deployment policy to meet the maintenance window of your machines and have it selected from the drop down menu. And then the target selection. So we have created different groups in the product. So either you can select the targets based on a remote office or based on the domain criteria and further drill down and apply the patches only to a specific group of machines based on the custom group or dynamic custom group that we have created or operating systems OU based. So all these criteria that you see in the drop down menu can be used for applying the patches onto your machines. And finally, get notified. So whenever you want to know the status of the deployment activity, any failures, instead of logging into the console, you can configure your email address. So any change that happens, administrator will be notified over the email with proper reports attached. So this is how configuring an automated task will save your time in the monthly patching activities. And similarly, whenever there is a 0-day update or whenever there is an emergency, you can go into the patches, missing patches, and we have the 0-day updates displayed in a separate view to give high priority to them. You can select the updates directly and initiate an on-demand operation where you will be navigated to the manual deployment window, and you will have the option called deploy immediately available, where the agents are going to take this task on priority and download the updates and perform the installation. So this is how both your automation and on-demand operations can be fulfilled by the Endpoint Central patch management functionality. Going back to the presentation, patch management as a glance or an overview. So our product is independent of WSS. So we have our own detection mechanism to identify the updates, download them from the vendor sites, and have them installed on the endpoints. And it's a cross-platform product where we support Windows, Mac, Linux, and third-party application patching. You can also make leverage of various features like test and approve, automatic patch deployment, and with flexible deployment policy to meet the organization's need. You can always tweak the features to suit the patch management requirement and utilize the filters to collect reports based on the auditing section. So this is an overview of the patch management module available in Endpoint Central Unified Endpoint Management. We also have other modules which features software deployment, inventory, MDM, OS deployment tools, and reporting, and this will be covered in the upcoming training sessions. Now let us take a look at the Endpoint Central architecture, mainly for the benefit of attendees who are not familiar with the product. Endpoint Central is an on-premise solution that supports a client-server application model, and you can have Endpoint Central hosted in any one of the supported Windows operating systems. This architecture talks about how you can manage the endpoints both on the LAN and wide area network. More information on the workflow of Endpoint Central will be discussed in the upcoming sessions. And Endpoint Central is available as a native cloud solution, and you should sign up for the below URL to start accessing Endpoint Central Cloud Edition. We have collated some of the FAQs, and we are going to discuss on that. The first question: if we have an automated task scheduled for 100 computers, and I choose to pre-download the patches during the refresh cycle, will all the systems still execute the updates in order, or will the systems have to wait until all the patches are downloaded onto the local machines? So the concept is, if you have enabled the agent to pre-download the updates, so all the required updates present in that configuration will be downloaded by the agent and stored locally on the endpoints. Now, once the deployment window starts, all the machines will start to focus on deployment, thereby reducing the time taken for the download. So the main reason to enable this feature is to initiate the deployment during the scheduled deployment window. Next question: local office machines are now at work from home, and how do I make them contact the Endpoint Central? As we discussed earlier, if a machine is not on VPN, you are going to need a secure gateway server to establish the communication with the Endpoint Central server. And if the machines are connected via VPN, the agent will communicate directly with the endpoint central server without the need of secure gateway. Next, is it necessary to disable the WSS if I use the Windows patches or deploy the updates from the endpoint central? Yes, we recommend you to disable the automatic updates on Windows as well as other third-party applications so that you can handle all of them from a single console. So that Endpoint Central will capture the details of the required updates and also the date and time when it was installed. So this will help you on the reporting aspect from a single console. Is there a way for Endpoint Central to download all the necessary patches and then restart the machines one after the other? Yes, the agent will scan for the missing patches, deploy them based on a schedule, and it will check for the reboot on every update. So once all the patches are installed on the schedule, it is going to execute a reboot based on the policy that you have defined. Next, when I exclude or decline a patch, is this removed from the patch management dashboard? Yes, when you decline a patch, it is no longer calculated as missing update for that computer. Now, let me show you how to decline a patch. So we have selective exclusions and we have permanent exclusions. Selective exclusion is when if you want to decline a patch from a particular configuration or a task, you go with that method. You can navigate to the console and this is available under automatic updates or automated patch creation. So once you select the type of updates, you have the option to choose either to patch only specific applications or to have some specific application excluded from being updated. So in case if you're going to patch the third-party apps on your developer machines where the Java application should not be updated, you can proceed to have them exempted from being patched. Now this is selective exclusion. Now the permanent exclusion, as discussed earlier, whenever you notice any problem with a patch or you don't want an update to be deployed right away, you can navigate to patches, decline patch. You can decline an update either on all the computers or only on a specific group of machines. And this decline can be done based on individual patch IDs, KB numbers, or bulletin ID. Or in case if you don't want an application to be updated, you can very well decline based on the application criteria too. So these are the two methods that is used for declining an update. Now let's see what the next question is. Our business applications misbehave occasionally, and I suspect it is caused due to the recent patch deployment activity. Now, how can I roll back a patch? In general, Endpoint Central supports the rollback of Microsoft updates. In fact, we have updated the uninstallation status, and you can find out from the threads and patches, install patches view, where we have a dedicated column available, which is going to show you whether the patch is supported for rollback. So you can select the update and straight away proceed to uninstall them. So if the vendor is supporting the rollback functionality, even the same logic will be supported in the Endpoint Central solution. Next question. When deploying the updates, I come across multiple error messages. How can I get them fixed? The reported errors could be due to multiple reasons, as you can see it related to the Office updates. So we have a dedicated troubleshooting article added to the product console. Generally, we will be adding the KB article beside the error code so that when it occurs, you will be able to follow the troubleshooting steps mentioned in it. Even after following all the troubleshooting steps, if the problem still persists, you can reach out to the support team for further assistance from the technical side. Next, is it possible to disable the end user notification on a single machine? Yes, this is something that you're customizing when you create a patch deployment configuration for a single device. You can decide to allow the end user to skip the deployment. As we have seen in the deployment policy, you can either disable or enable the user notification so that they can be allowed or proceed or skip the reboot or patch deployment task. Next, What is the SLA for the patches to be available once they're released from the Microsoft? So as soon as patches are released, our team will start the testing process to add the checksums and the detection logic. And once it is done, the patches will be released in our database. You can expect the security updates within 12 hours and the rest of the updates within a maximum of 24 hours. And there is a mismatch, or I could see a difference in the number of missing patches discovered by Endpoint Central against the Windows updates or WSS. What could be the reason behind it? In case of operating systems like Windows 7, 8.1, or Server 2008 or 2012, Windows does not detect the security only updates. But Endpoint Central, on the other hand, will collect the data of the patches from various sources like Windows updates, Microsoft catalog, and show the total count of missing patches, which is the reason why you can find discrepancy between Endpoint Central and Windows updates. How are failed patches handled in the test and approve process? The main reason why we are testing the updates is to see that it is not causing any issues or failures on your test devices. So if you have selected automatic approval of patches after testing, remember only the patches that are successfully installed and on at least one of the machines and have not failed on any one of the test devices will only be approved. So in case if a patch is failed on any of the test devices, it will not be further approved and it will not be deployed to any of the production devices. So ultimately, it is important we focus on resolving it based on the troubleshooting article added because the same failure might occur on the production machines as well. So if you're able to find out the root cause why the patches are failed on the test machines and sort them, you can stop such failures from happening on the production environment too. Now, how can I see what are the patches released in the recent patch Tuesday cycle and see all the missing systems? I hope you're aware. We saw the options on the patch management. Under the missing patches, you can create a filter to view the latest updates. So based on the release time in the current month or in the current week or in the current quarter, you can see all the patches that have been released and on how many systems they are currently required. And you can also get the information from the threads and patches, latest patches view to view all the information about the latest patches that are released from the vendor. Going back to the presentation, do we support the publishing of patches to the endpoints and allow the user to install at their convenient time? In other words, instead of deploying the updates silently, is there a functionality to publish all the patches to the end devices and let the owner of the machine decide what patches are required and further install them at their convenient time? So within the product, we have released the self-service portal functionality available, wherein all the patches will be published to the end devices, and the admin can access the self-service portal and install the updates at their own convenient time. And this self-service portal functionality has been released in the latest build versions 11.1.2236.1. So if you need more information about the self-service portal functionality, you can reach out to the support team or the chat panel for further guidance. All right, it's time for the frequently asked questions and the live questionnaire. So please keep the questions coming and I'll be able to discuss them and answer them all. All right, we have a question regarding the mobile devices patching. So is it possible to patch the mobile devices using the patch management functionality? No. The patch management offered in Endpoint Central currently supports the patching of Windows, Mac, and Linux operating systems. But in case if your requirement is to patch the mobile devices, This is offered in part of the Endpoint Central under the mobile device management, where you can control when the OS updates and when the application updates should be installed on the endpoints. So mobile device management is a functionality available in the Endpoint Central solution that can fulfill your requirement of patching your mobile devices. And we also have a dedicated training session scheduled for the MDM, during which the functionality will be discussed in detail. And we have a question regarding the system restore point. Will it work only on Windows, or does it support other operating systems too? So currently, the system restore point creation is supported for both Windows and Linux only as of now. And we have a question, a general question regarding the recording of the session. So all the training sessions that we are going to perform in the series of 6 weeks will be thoroughly recorded and will be sent to your registered email address. Or you can also visit our website to find the recording on our product website too. All right. And next question, what would be the best way to update applications such as web browsers that are required to be closed or restarted for the update to take action? So yes, applications like Zoom or Google Chrome, when an update is applied, it requires the restarting of the web application, but it might cause the loss of activity too. So in such scenarios, we recommend our administrators to deploy the patch during system startup. So when the system is restarted, since the application will not be used, the patch will be successfully applied for Google Chrome, Zoom, or other Office applications. In case if you need a workaround, if you want to patch the application, even when the application is currently under usage, we have an option to forcefully kill the application and apply the patch as well. For more information on this functionality, we recommend you to reach out to the chat panel or the support team for more guidance on the process. And for Office updates specifically, we have started supporting the functionality of Office Click to Run, where the user will be prompted with a message asking them if it is okay to forcefully close the application and apply the patches. So based on the user consent, the application will be closed and the patch will be applied successfully. Okay, we have a question regarding the test and approve functionality, more of a good example and maybe like a workflow of how it can be expected by the admins on a daily day-to-day process. In simple terms, the agenda of the test and approve is to ensure that all the patches that are getting installed on the production devices are safe and doesn't cause any type of problem. So when you're creating a test group, you can mimic your production environment. I mean, from each and every operating system, you can select one or two devices, and you should also ensure that all the applications that are running on the production environment are also installed on the test machines. So this way, all the OS, Microsoft application, and third-party patches will be first installed on the test devices. And once the validation is completed, the updates which are successfully deployed will be further approved and rolled out to the production. In case if you face any challenges while installing the patches on the test devices, they will not be approved, and you can further troubleshoot and resolve the problem so that the same issue will not be occurring on the production devices. And while the testing is happening, if you notice any issues like machines falling into a reboot loop or BSOD error, you can immediately decline the patches so that the same updates which are causing issue will not be applied to any of your production devices. So the main purpose of test and approve is to safeguard your production machines from getting affected with any type of patch that may cause some problem. All right. So please keep the questions coming. We have the chat panel available who will be answering all your questionnaire. And we have the next training session coming on. It's about the unified endpoint security, where we'll be discussing more functionality on the security aspect like device controlling, anti-ransomware, data loss prevention, vulnerability management. And this will be on November 9th. We have some new functionalities that we will be shedding some light on for your reference. And in case if you need a personalized Endpoint Central demonstration, please do reach out to the chat support team and we will be able to organize it, or you can browse for this URL for directly requesting for scheduling a demonstration too. And finally, thank you everyone for joining the session on your busy schedule. You guys all have a great day. Thank you.